Well, we got some breaking news out of the NFL when it comes to the Tennessee Titans. They have fired their general manager, Ran Carthon, after just 2 seasons there in Tennessee. He finished this year with a 3-14 record at the helm there, which earned them the #1 overall pick in this year's 2025 NFL draft. That is the good news, but in 2 seasons under Carthon, the Titans won just 9 games, 25 losses, which is tied for 3rd fewest in the NFL over that stretch. His tenure includes with the drafting quarterback there of Will Levis, who hasn't played well, who has struggled mightily there. In fact, a lot of pick sixes when it comes to the Tennessee Titans. But of course, the front office and also ownership releasing this statement saying, and quote, "It's impossible to ignore that our football team hasn't improved over the past 2 years. I'm deeply disappointed in our poor win-loss record during this period, of course, but my decision ongoing here also speaks to my concern about our long-term future should we stay the course. I love this team more than you can imagine. To our fans, we know this level of performance isn't acceptable. We're humbled by your support, and as we continue to work towards building the team you expect and deserve," end quote there. Of course, that coming from Amy Adams Strunk there, the controlling owner. For more on this, I want to bring in our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones, who's been busy the past couple of days, and this one maybe catches us off by surprise here, JJ, with, of course, the Titans saying bye-bye to the GM after 2 years. Your reaction to this news moments ago?
Yeah, there have been some rumors around the NFL that Ran Carthon's job was in jeopardy heading into the final stanza of the season. And obviously, whatever sort of postseason meetings took place there among the brain trust with Tennessee, ultimately determining that it was better for them to move forward without Ran Carthon than with him. You know, it has been a very unique sort of last 2+ years with the Tennessee Titans. Let's go back to the first week of December. They're 7-4. They faced the Philadelphia Eagles, to whom they had traded A.J. Brown with John Robinson as GM. They lose to the Eagles, get a little embarrassed with their former player on the other sideline, and then they fire John Robinson, who had never had a losing season. Then, a couple weeks later, Amy Adams Strunk, the owner of the Tennessee Titans, meets Ran Carthon at the NFL's Accelerator program for front office and personnel folk. And then a few weeks after that, she ultimately hires him as general manager to pair with Mike Vrabel. Then, as he was hired to sort of work with a coach who was coach of the year, heavy in personnel, they work together, and then ultimately Strunk decides, well, we're going to go with Ran Carthon as GM, and we're going to fire Mike Vrabel. Okay, they do that, and then they make some changes in the front office, where assistant GM Chad Brinker then moves to president of football operations with the Tennessee Titans. And then this year, they allowed Ran Carthon to go out and hire Brian Callahan as head coach. They struggle on the field, wind up getting the #1 overall pick, and of course, there were some issues, some misses in free agency, no question about it. Calvin Ridley did not live up to it, but no one more disappointing than L'Jarius Sneed, who they gave up a 3rd-round pick for to the Kansas City Chiefs. That clearly has not worked out either. And so now they're out on Ran Carthon. Chad Brinker will lead the search for the next general manager, someone who is going to have a focus on drafting and developing players, because that is what this Tennessee Titans organization certainly needs after years, over a couple of different regimes and coaches and personnel folks, years of missing out on some players both in the draft and in free agency.
JJ, you just touched on it a little bit. We're not that far removed. This is a playoff team with Vrabel there at the helm, and now it looks like a team that has been at the bottom of the barrel with just 9 wins the past 2 seasons. If you are the GM coming in, yes, they do have Will Levis. You do have their #1 pick. What is the direction? Are we thinking quarterback? Is it other options out there? Do you trade it? What is the first goal of that GM's next job?
Okay, I'll actually tell you the immediate first goal of that GM's job, and frankly, what the first question is going to be is, where's the consistency laid out how you manager because you were somewhat embarrassed or that he couldn't take you where you wanted to go. You ran this search, and then you get Ran Carthon. You fire him after 2 years because you say that the sort of general manager that he is today and what you need today is different than what you hired him for. You fired Mike Vrabel, who everyone in the NFL now wants to be their head coach. So where is the consistency from ownership, from top down? There are some fantastic people within that Titans organization, but so long as you are going to decide to go one way and then zag the next year, you will never, ever be successful in the NFL. So that is going to be the top question that for any general manager candidate, they're going to have answered by ownership in order to feel comfortable. Now, once you do install that person, we saw right there at the draft board, Tennessee Titans. I mean, there's no doubt back that they ultimately wanted, a couple of years ago. And so they had to stick with Will Levis in the top of the second round. I don't know that anyone in the league really thought that he was going to blossom into a guy. We knew that early on, but they had to see it through, right? They had to see it through, and they saw it through, and they know that he can't be the guy. Will he be on the roster in 25? I absolutely believe so. Is he going to be the week 1 starter? He better not be, and anyone with the Tennessee Titans organization knows that. So picking number 1, it could be Cam Ward, it could be Shedeur Sanders. Could they attract potentially a free agent if Sam Darnold doesn't wind up back with Minnesota? I perhaps. But these next couple of months will be about identifying the best GM that can draft and develop players. And at the top of that list will be the quarterback.
Yeah, 5-16 as a starter, and you were supposed to come in and flip a switch here. That does not help if you're Will Levis, but it does help for the Tennessee Titans there with that number 1 overall draft pick. Of course, we'll keep tabs on this. Jonathan Jones on that breaking news of Ran Carthon out as the GM after 2 years. As I mentioned, the good news, the Titans do have that number 1 spot on the other side. Ryan Wilson, he has so many mock drafts. I'm curious if it changes it now. He'll talk to our Jacqueline DiAugustino about the Titans and what they might do at number 1 now with Carthon out in Tennessee.
All right, thanks, Brandon. Yeah, let's bring in our mock draft expert, the one, the only, Ryan Wilson. Ryan, always good to see you. And to Brandon's point, you've pumped out mock draft after mock draft. The Tennessee Titans, they are on the clock as of right now with that number 1 overall pick with Ran Carthon completely out. What should this new exec that's coming in, what should they do with this number 1 overall pick, in your opinion?
Hey, Jacqueline, good to see you. And I think JJ made it pretty clear it has to be a quarterback, right? They drafted Malik Willis 2 years ago, and then they drafted Will Levis last year. You could argue Malik Willis is doing better in Green Bay than obviously Will Levis is in Tennessee. He was benched about with a month to go in the season. So it has to be quarterback. You have to get the quarterback pick right. And JJ mentioned 2 names, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. Right now, those are the only 2 quarterbacks destined to go in the first round, probably top 5. And then after that, you're going to have to squint and figure out who the other quarterbacks might be inside that top 32. This is the mock draft that I put out yesterday. It's not going to change because you see Cam Ward there at the top. And the only thing to keep in mind, Jacqueline, is this. Number one, if you're the Tennessee Titans or the Cleveland Browns or whomever, do you like Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders better? And it's going to be close. And number 2, if you're the Titans, do you even entertain the idea of trading down a few spots? Because there are going to be 6 or 7 teams in that first round that want a quarterback. Only 2 will be able to get them. Do you trade down and try to get a Bryce Young type haul that the Bears got when they allowed the Panthers to move up from number 9 to number 1 a few years ago? That's going to be an extra first-round pick, a couple extra second-round picks, maybe even a player like a DJ Moore type. So those are the conversations that they're going to have, and they're going to have to happen pretty quickly because we have 108 days until the draft. There's no GM. The head coach is still there, but he's coming off a 3-win season in his rookie campaign. And the other thing I'll say is this. I mentioned Malik Willis, Jacqueline. He's having some success in Green Bay, and he's having that success because of the coaching staff and the infrastructure around him, and that's what you have to get right. You can draft a kid, but if you put him in a situation where he's set up to fail and there are no guardrails in place, guess what's going to happen? He's going to fail. So they have to check a lot of boxes. They don't have very much time to do it in Tennessee, and you have to get that quarterback position right, and you have to get the coach in place to get that quarterback where he needs to be, whether it's Brian Callahan or a QB coach or the OC or whatever, and then the GM pulling the strings to get that roster in place to help that quarterback.
Yeah, and to your point, Malik Willis has been able to keep that Packers team afloat while Jordan Love was dealing with some injuries that we saw throughout the regular season. Ryan, back to your mock. Of course, you have Cam Ward there going number 1 overall to the Titans, and we've talked about it a lot of times. It's a 2-man race there for that number 1 spot between Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. How big is that gap, or is there a big gap? How tight is that race there for 1 and 2, or does it come down more to fit when you think of the teams that need a quarterback? Because to your point, there's a lot of them. You have the Giants that are there. Are they going to try and trade up? Are they going to go Travis Hunter? The Raiders, maybe? Who knows about the Jets? But just how tight is that race between 1 and 2 right now?
Yeah, all those teams you mentioned and above, because those teams do need quarterback. It's a tight race. And I'll say this, and this is what has come down to me, for me, with Cam and Shedeur, the race for number 1. When you look around the NFL and you see the quarterback play, and you look no further than Denver or even New England, those quarterbacks are athletic. They can play outside of structure because the pass protection is going to break down, and Cam Ward is a better athlete than Shedeur Sanders. And you'll see here at some of his movement skills inside and outside the pocket. The ball comes out quickly. He has a bigger arm than Shedeur. And look, this is to take nothing away from Shedeur, who played behind some suspect offensive lines at Colorado. I think that's fair to say. And he is a tough individual. But Cam's a little better in space. Here he is against your favorite Florida Gators team. That was a tough game to watch if you're a Gators fan.
I always got to watch that highlight every time we talk about Cam Ward. Come on.
I mean, that's the only team Cam played, apparently, Jacqueline. But he can sling it. And the issue with Cam Ward and Shedeur is this. They play out of structure sometimes too much, and teams want to see them in the NFL play more from the pocket, play more on time, because we saw it with Caleb Williams, right? The first half of the season or so. He tried to create every single play, and a lot of times he made bad decisions and took big hits, and you want to avoid that. Both these players got better at that, but if you're asking me in terms of who's number one, and it's by a hair, it's Cam, because he's a little bigger, a little stronger, a little better in space, a bigger arm. But NFL teams will have to decide for themselves. And again, man, you got to get it right. You got to get it right. You can't take the wrong person here, because it'll set your franchise back, and we'll continue to have these conversations about so-and-so was fired because they didn't meet expectations because they drafted so-and-so a few years ago.
And Ryan, really quickly, is there a world where maybe, they go pick up a quarterback that's out there on the free agent market? We know the quarterback class in this free agent market isn't very deep, but would Tennessee do that maybe as taking a bridge quarterback, and then they trade down for a haul to kind of, they're talking about long-term future, they want to build. Can you see a world where that happens?
Yeah, I like the way you're thinking, because let's say, for example, a Justin Fields fits what you want to do. If you get the right play caller in place, Brian Callahan feels like he can work with an athlete like Justin Fields, and you have him on a 1 or 2 year deal, and then you trade down and you get sort of the haul that the Bears got from the Carolina Panthers for Bryce Young. And now you're cooking with gas, because you're going to get a playmaker by way of a trade potentially. You're going to get a couple of first-round picks, a couple of second-round picks, and you're already bad, so you're going to be picking at the top of the second round this draft cycle anyway, top of the third round as well. And you can get 3, 4, 5 players for the price of one while getting that bridge quarterback. You'll win, hopefully, 6 or 7 or 8 games next year as part of that rebuild with that bridge quarterback. And then next year's quarterback class, as we always like to say, Jacqueline, could be a little sexier. It's hard to tell, 18 months out. But those are the conversations you have to have, because we saw it a few years ago with that Malik Neighbors draft. The only quarterback drafted in the first round in that draft class was Kenny Pickett. He lasted 2 years in Pittsburgh, and he got traded because they weren't happy with the way he was playing. The OC got fired. They brought in Russ and the aforementioned Justin Fields. So it goes back to my original point, and the one that JJ made a moment ago. You got to get it right. You got to get the GM right. You got to get the quarterback right. And then you have to be able to build around those pieces, because you look at those teams drafting in the top 5, the top 6 every year, Jacqueline, they're the exact same teams because they make the exact same mistakes, and they don't seem to learn from those mistakes. Or look around the league and look at the teams that are having successes, like the Green Bay Packers, for example, like the Denver Broncos, who turn things around quickly, even though they're still paying Russ 95% of that huge salary. So there are ways to learn about how to fix this thing. You just have to go out and do it if you're those teams that continually struggle.
I feel like that was like some sort of a shot at the Jacksonville Jaguars, because we've talked about them a lot, Ryan, always being in that top 5. They were almost, picking #1 overall for like 3 times in the last 5 years, something crazy like that. One last question for you, Ryan. Being in the AFC South, where it is the Jags, the Texans obviously have emerged as a front runner there. We have the Colts, who are, they're right there, still missing the playoffs, but it is a winnable division. How much does that work in this Titans organization's favor when trying to rebuild? It might not take as long to get to the postseason or make a turnaround if you're in a division like the AFC South.
Yeah, that's another great point, Jacqueline, because look at the Houston Texans last year, right? We were saying, oh, my God, the Carolina Panthers picked the wrong quarterback, C.J. Stroud, DeMeco Ryans. They turned that unit around in 24 hours, essentially, in terms of NFL timelines. That said, the last 9 games, Jacqueline, this blew my brain when I saw it. Bryce Young has outplayed C.J. Stroud. So everything is fluid, as the saying goes. But that division, it is wide open, to your point. Your Jacksonville Jaguars have struggled. They fired Doug Peterson. Trevor Lawrence has struggled to stay healthy. The Indianapolis Colts don't know what to make of Anthony Richardson. I mean, this is all about Jacqueline hour right now. The Florida Gators, the Jacksonville Jaguars, everything has gone south for Jacqueline's favorite teams. But that leaves the Tennessee Titans to make the good decisions and get the players and the front office guys in place to get this thing on on track because you're not battling against the Josh Allens or the Lamar Jacksons of the world. This is an open division. If you can find a way to win 8 games with 2 or 3 weeks to go in the season, you're going to be in position to make the playoffs. And that feels like a long ways away, but the Denver Broncos and the Houston Texans can tell you that if you get a couple of pieces right, the next thing could be finding your way back to the playoffs.
Ryan, I don't know how I feel about Jacqueline and AFC South being synonymous with the state of the AFC South right now. Talking about the Jags, Anthony Richardson, I don't know if I want to be in that same category, but I don't know. But to your point, maybe we can quickly turn it around. It's one of the most competitive divisions in football. Again, fingers crossed. Ryan, we certainly appreciate it. Always good to see you, my friend. Joining us here to talk about the draft angle for that breaking news where the Tennessee Titans, they have fired General Manager Ran Carthon after just 2 seasons. And you can hear more from Ryan Wilson alongside Rick Spielman on their podcast With the First Pick, CBS Sports' NFL Draft podcast that is on year long. Download, follow, listen wherever you get your pods, or you can watch right now by scanning that QR code.